Imagine a narrow strip of water so small that you could cross it in less than an hour by boat. Now imagine that this tiny passage controls the flow of nearly 1/5 of the world's oil supply. If this single waterway were suddenly blocked, the global economy could feel the shock within hours. Gas prices would surge, markets could crash, and world powers might be pushed to the brink of military conflict. This place is called the Strait of Hormuz, and despite its small size, it is one of the most strategically important and dangerous locations on Earth. The Strait of Hormuz sits between Iran to the north and Oman and the United Arab Emirates to the south. It connects the Persian Gulf to the Arabian Sea and ultimately to the Indian Ocean. At its narrowest point, the strait is only about 21 miles wide, but the shipping lanes used by massive oil tankers are even narrower. In fact, the safe navigation channels for ships are only about 2 miles wide in each direction. Through this tight corridor, an enormous amount of the world's energy supply travels every single day. Roughly 20 million barrels of oil pass through the Strait of Hormuz daily. That oil comes from some of the world's largest energy producers, including Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Kuwait, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, and Iran. For these countries, the strait is the main gateway that connects their oil fields to international markets. Tankers carrying crude oil and liquefied natural gas move through this narrow waterway on their way to Asia, Europe, and North America. Because of this, many experts describe the Strait of Hormuz as the most important oil choke point in the entire world, but the significance of this region didn't begin with oil. The waters around the Strait of Hormuz have been vital trade routes for centuries. Long before modern tankers sailed through these waters, ancient merchants used the same passage to connect the great civilizations of the Middle East, India, and East Africa. Ships carried spices, silk, precious metals, and textiles through these waters as part of a vast network of trade routes that linked Asia with the rest of the world. During the medieval period, the region was dominated by the Kingdom of Hormuz, a wealthy trading power that controlled commerce in the Persian Gulf. The kingdom built its fortune by taxing ships that passed through the strait. Because every merchant vessel traveling between the Indian Ocean and the Persian Gulf had to pass through this narrow gateway, the rulers of Hormuz became incredibly rich and influential. In the early 16th century, European powers began to recognize the strategic importance of the region. The Portuguese Empire was among the first to attempt to control it. In 1515, Portuguese forces captured the island of Hormuz and constructed powerful forts to dominate the shipping lanes. For nearly a century, Portugal controlled trade through the strait, using its naval power to tax and regulate ships moving between Europe and Asia. However, Portuguese dominance did not last forever. In 1622, Persian forces working together with the British East India Company successfully expelled the Portuguese from the island. This marked a turning point in the region's history and restored Persian influence over the strait. For the next several centuries, the waterway remained an important commercial passage, but it would take the discovery of oil in the 20th century to transform it into a center of global strategic importance. Everything changed when vast oil reserves were discovered beneath the deserts of the Middle East. By the mid-1900s, countries around the Persian Gulf had become some of the largest oil producers in the world. Oil quickly became the lifeblood of modern industry, powering cars, airplanes, factories, and entire national economies. And almost all of that oil had to pass through one narrow exit point before reaching global markets, the Strait of Hormuz. As global dependence on Middle Eastern oil grew, the strategic importance of the strait increased dramatically. Protecting the flow of oil shipments became a major priority for global powers, especially the United States and its allies. Naval forces began maintaining a constant presence in the region to ensure that tankers could pass safely through the waterway. Tensions surrounding the strait reached a dangerous level during the 1980s during the Iran-Iraq War. In what became known as the Tanker War, both Iran and Iraq began attacking oil tankers traveling through the Persian Gulf. Commercial vessels became targets for missiles, mines, and airstrikes. More than 400 ships were damaged or destroyed during this period, sending shockwaves through the global energy market. Fearing that the conflict could disrupt oil supplies worldwide, the United States launched Operation Earnest Will. American warships began escorting oil tankers through the Gulf to protect them from attack. The situation escalated further when U.S. and Iranian naval forces clashed directly in several incidents, making the Strait of Hormuz one of the most militarized waterways in the world. Today, tensions surrounding the strait still remain extremely high. Much of the concern centers around Iran, which controls the northern coastline of the waterway. Because of its geographic position, Iran has the ability to disrupt shipping traffic through the strait if it chooses to do so. Over the years, Iranian leaders have repeatedly warned that they could block the strait if their oil exports are restricted by international sanctions. Military analysts believe Iran could attempt to close the strait using a combination of naval mines, fast attack boats, submarines, drones, and anti-ship missiles. Even a temporary disruption disruption could have massive consequences for the global economy. Oil prices could surge dramatically, and energy markets around the world could experience immediate instability. To prevent this scenario, the United States maintains a powerful naval presence in the region. The U.S. Fifth Fleet, based in Bahrain, regularly patrols the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz. Its primary mission is to ensure that international shipping can continue moving safely through the waterway. Despite these security efforts, the possibility of conflict in the strait remains a constant concern for world leaders. Because such a large portion of the world's oil supply flows through this narrow passage, even a brief closure could create a global crisis. Energy prices could skyrocket, shipping routes could be disrupted, and major economies could face severe shortages. Some experts believe that if the Strait of Hormuz were blocked for an extended period, global oil prices could double or even triple. Governments around the world would likely be forced to release emergency oil reserves, while military forces might intervene to reopen the shipping lanes. This is why the Strait of Hormuz is often described as the world's most dangerous economic choke point. It is a place where geography, politics, and global energy demand all collide in a narrow strip of water. Today, massive oil tankers continue to move through the strait every day, carrying energy supplies that power cities, industries, and transportation systems across the globe. From space, the strait might look like a small and insignificant gap between two landmasses, but in reality, it is one of the most critical arteries of the global economy. For centuries, it has served as a gateway for trade and commerce. In the modern era, it has become something far more powerful, a strategic pressure point capable of influencing global markets and international security. As tensions in the Middle East continue to evolve, the Strait of Hormuz remains at the center of global attention. Because in a world that still runs on oil, control over this narrow waterway could shape the future of economies, alliances, and conflicts around the planet. And that is why this tiny passage of water remains one of the most important and potentially dangerous locations on Earth.